Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Melissa and today I want to talk to you guys about the beginning of my spiritual journey. I got some requests from people that they wanted to hear a little bit about my spiritual encounters, so I decided to film that first. So from when I can remember, I was 6 years old. You're gonna see me looking to like my right a lot or your left because that's what I do when I'm thinking and imagining things. I don't know. So you'll notice that I don't really look at the camera a lot. But I was 6 years old. I remember I lived with my grandparents. I was born and raised Catholic. And my grandparents had two statues in front of their stairwell. And one is Jesus and one is Mary. And I remember there's people walking outside, so I'm just looking at them. My babysitter at the time was stirring some food in the kitchen and all of a sudden I decided to play with my mom's bracelet, and it was a gold bracelet and there was like jewels on it, different color jewels, like green, blue, red, different colors, and I was so attracted to it because it was shiny. And I decided to play frisbee with it. So I grabbed the bracelet and I started throwing it around in the living room. And it got to the point where I grabbed it and I threw it and I accidentally hit Jesus. Was it Jesus? No, I accidentally hit Mary in the face. And her statue, she looks like this. Yeah, she looks like this. And then Jesus is standing right beside her and he's like this. So I hit her really hard, and all of a sudden, there was a huge change, huge change in the room. The lights started flickering. I couldn't move. I remember I was staring right up at the statues, and I was wondering what the heck is going on. And all of a sudden, her hands started to come apart, and blue tears were like blue wax tears or something was dripping down her face. Her hands started to break apart and I saw like the shattering of the clay or whatever the statue is made out of. And she like started crying and tears started dripping down, and all of a sudden Jesus ripped his hand out from his body, grabbed the bracelet, took it out of her hands like that, looked at it, and she took her hands, put her face into her hands, and started weeping. And I couldn't believe my eyes. And Jesus grabbed the bracelet, still with his hand like this, but at this time he was holding the bracelet like that. And all of a sudden he looked at me and he kind of shook his head no, and then he threw it down the staircase. I remember after he threw it down, it was like a couple of seconds and the lights went back on, and then I was able to like move again. And then I took a deep breath and I looked over at my left where my uncle was cooking food in the kitchen, and I said to him, "Did you see that?" And he's like, "See what?" And he was still cooking the food, almost like all of this never happened. And it felt like about 15-20 minutes that I was in this different dimension or something, but my uncle was cooking as if it was like a second. So it was really weird. That was the first encounter I ever had. I get like riled up when I talk about this, so I start like panting and breathing really hard and like coughing and stuff, so don't mind me. Anyway, next encounter I remember is I used to faint in church. A lot, like 3 times I can recall, whenever it was like a big crowd or a big event or something. I remember at Christmas time there would be mass at like 11 a.m. or something, or like 6 p.m. I don't remember, and a bunch of us would go to mass, and while we would be praying, I remember this one distinct moment. Everything got hot around me, like everyone was so deep in prayer. And I was maybe 11 or 12. Everyone was just deep in prayer. And I started to get hot. I started to see like stars, like twinkles. And I remember just shutting down and everything went black. And I like fainted. Another time, I was able to catch myself. I was still around the same age, like 11, 12. Went to Mass again for a different celebration or occasion. And I was able to catch myself. I took myself to this gymnasium where like the washrooms were, and I sat myself down on the chairs, and I remember looking up at all the people just staring at me going to the washroom like, what the heck is this girl on? She looks like she's messed up or something. And since then, I felt so uncomfortable because every single time there was a special event like Christmas time, New Year's, I'd always faint. And I always thought like maybe it's claustrophobia or something, or maybe I just had anxiety attacks or whatever. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Another situation was several years later. It was at this thing called YFC, Youth for Christ, and it was like 2008, if I can recall. I was 15 years old or something. And I have bits and pieces still in my head about what happened, and I do have people that have told me what happened, but we were in a big group and it was like a prayer, and we're all holding hands, a bunch of us, and just praying. And all of a sudden, I remember I started like shaking, like literally holding people's hands, shaking. And then I started speaking in tongues. And not many people know that, but I was able to speak in tongues like many years ago, but I've never practiced it. And this was something I learned about myself maybe at like 14 years old, when I started getting into these like Catholic youth groups and all that. So I started shaking. All of a sudden, I started speaking in tongues. And the last thing I can remember was I just like passed out again. And it's like, why do I keep passing out? And then all of a sudden, later on, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, maybe 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, I woke up. And when I woke up, we were in a big gymnasium, lights were turned off, pretty sure there were candles. I looked up, and then there was a huge group of people just like putting their hands on top like this of me, on top of me like this. And they were like praying, and people were crying, and I was crying, and it was just very, very different. Like, I can't even explain what I felt, but I just felt like I was crying. Like, something so deep was crying, and it's like, dang girl, you only 15 years old. Why are you crying like you got so many problems in your life? Like, looking back, yeah, I did have a traumatizing upbringing at times, and I was very isolated and all that, but like, I don't know why I cried so hard. And then another time, fast forward, it was like 2012, I think. My mom and I had moved out of our apartment, and we started living in this basement. And the basement that we were living in was my family members, and I was dating my boyfriend at this time. We were dating for a year, I believe. And I have a dog named Milo. He lives with my mom and my grandparents, so you don't really see him. You're gonna see my cats a lot. But anyways, I remember there was this one night, it was around 9, 10 p.m. or something, and I would be in my room, and I would feel this dark, like, entity in the corner of my room, and I didn't know what to think of it. I didn't know what to do. I just kind of ignored it. I knew there was a dark energy in that whole basement. No offense to my cousin, but you know who you are. I love you. Okay, so I knew there was like darkness there, and I didn't understand what it was, but I knew it was just not vibing with me. But I kept ignoring it because I'm like, I have to live here anyway. There was this one night where the aura or the darkness was so strong, I could literally see a dark shadow just kind of hovering over me. Not over me, but like really tall, really big, dark energy just hovering. And I ignored it. And then another time, I was sleeping. My boyfriend and I were sleeping on the bed, and I didn't know why, but I remember always asking him, like, please sleep over, please hang out with me, please spend time with me, like, I don't want to sleep here alone, something is in my room. And I kept telling him that over and over again, like, something is in my room, like, I feel like something is in my room. So he would just sleep over to, like, comfort me and stuff, and then I would go to work, and he would go and do his thing. And there was this one night, we were sleeping on the bed, I was on the right side, he was on the left side, and it was around 3 a.m. and he was awake, but something woke him up, because when he looked over at me, I was chanting, okay? And I wasn't chanting out loud, I was chanting in silence. This is what he told me, because I don't remember. But he said that I looked like I was like, I don't want to reenact it because I don't know how I looked, but damn, I wish he took a video. But apparently I was like chanting so aggressively and like shaking and stuff from the bed, and my eyes were closed and I looked like I was like being possessed or whatever. And all of a sudden he got so scared and he shook me, and I woke up and I was like, yeah? What? And he's like, you didn't feel that? You don't know what you just did? And I'm like, no. Why'd you wake me up? And then he told me. And I was like, bruh, this dark entity thing that's in the corner of my room just tried to get all up on it. I was so freaked out. Okay, and then the third time, I was home alone and I wanted to watch Netflix. And I was in the living room with my dog, and it was like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Like, shit always happens to me at night, I swear. And then, I was watching Netflix. I was just kind of on the laptop, whatever. And then my dog came up, and he was kind of like below where my feet were. And he started growling. And I was like, Milo, what's wrong? Come here. So then I picked him up, put him on my lap. I was watching on my laptop. All of a sudden, he started growling at the ground. And he was, like, aggressively growling. Like, I've never seen my dog growl like this. He was like, and he started, like, backing up really aggressively onto my body. Like, his butt was going on my chest. And I was like, Milo, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he kept getting, like, more, like, back, like, scared. And then he kept barking all of a sudden, and I freaked the hell out. So I grabbed my cell phone, I called my cousin, I was like, Christine, you need to come downstairs right now, like, I'm freaking out, my dog sees something. So she comes downstairs, I kid you not, she walked downstairs, and as soon as that entity heard her footsteps walk down the stairs, it booked it back into the corner of my room, because as soon as Christine or my cousin got back downstairs where I was, my dog jumped off of my lap, ran straight into my bedroom, and started barking at the frickin' wall. So it tried to get me when I was alone. Like, this is why I don't mess with exorcism movies and, like, horror movies, because that shit is real. Like, it actually happens to me, and it's crazy. It's like, I don't know, I don't get it. So I told my boyfriend about it, and he was like, it's because you're weak-minded. And thinking about it now, it probably was because I was weak-minded, or something was just telling me, like, hey, wake up. You have a purpose, and you're supposed to see these things. But I was shit